The scent of smoked brisket drifted through the air, carried by a gentle summer breeze that rippled across the manicured lawns of Woodlake Pines. My wife, Lena, stood on the back porch arranging trays of deviled eggs, while our twins played tag under strings of warm lights I'd hung the night before. Folding tables stretched across our backyard, each draped in red and white checkered cloths, adorned with homemade dishes and pitchers of lemonade. After 5 years apart, our family reunion had finally arrived. It should have been perfect. We had chosen this house for its wide yard and quiet cul-de-sac, ideal for hosting large family events. Lena and I had worked for months to organize this weekend, coordinating flights, setting up sleeping arrangements, and preparing enough food to feed 50 people. Everyone was flying in. Cousins from Atlanta, my older brother's crew from Denver, even Uncle Darnell, who hadn't left Mississippi since the Bush administration. There was only one wild card we hadn't accounted for: Cynthia Greaves. Cynthia, though most neighbors called her Karen behind closed doors, was the self-appointed monarch of the Woodlake Pines Homeowners Association. With a stiff posture, an immovable bob haircut, and a binder full of bylaws, she wielded her clipboard like a sword. She didn't just enforce the rules, she lived them. No lawn furniture after dusk, no unsightly vegetable gardens in front, yards. And certainly no events without prior approval. She had ticketed people for string lights, confiscated wind chimes, and once reported a kid's lemonade stand for unlicensed commercial activity. I had hoped, naively, that our reunion might fly under her radar. It didn't. Friday evening, just as cousins began arriving and laughter echoed through the neighborhood, Cynthia emerged from around the corner, heels clicking on the pavement, lips pursed like she'd bitten into something sour. She didn't walk so much as she marched, an HOA badge pinned to her blouse like a sheriff's star. She stopped at the edge of our driveway and surveyed the scene. Folding chairs, coolers, trays of food, a small speaker softly playing old-school jazz. Her eyes narrowed with the precision of a sniper. "Mr. Donovan," she said, voice like cold tea, "you didn't file an event notification form." I put down the tray I was carrying. "Evening, Ms. Greaves. This isn't a community event, just a family gathering, all on private property." She blinked slowly. Woodlake Pines policy defines any gathering exceeding 10 guests not residing at the property as an event. You are required to submit a request 30 days in advance for board approval. That includes parking logistics, noise assessments, and neighborhood impact reports. I gestured to the curb. All vehicles are on our lawn or legally parked along the street. No one's blocking anything. We're well within city code. City code is irrelevant here, she snapped, raising her clipboard. The HOA's authority extends to all communal and visible activity. I've already documented 6 vehicles, not registered to residents and potential violations of Noise Ordinance subsection 4C. Lena appeared beside me, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "With all due respect, Cynthia, this is a family reunion. Our relatives flew across the country to be here. We're not disturbing anyone." Cynthia's eyes scanned her notes. Disturbance is subjective. Several neighbors have already expressed concern about traffic and congestion. I knew that was a lie. Our closest neighbors, the Hartmans and the Rodriguezes, were at the reunion. But challenging her directly wouldn't help. People like Cynthia thrived on confrontation. They mistook silence for surrender and pushback for open rebellion. "Look," I said carefully, "we'll keep things clean and quiet. It's just for the weekend. No late-night parties, no fireworks, no wild crowds. Just food, music, and family." Her lips curled into a smile that never reached her eyes. "Then I suggest you wrap it up early, because if the board receives further complaints," she tapped her clipboard, "I'll be forced to escalate the matter." And with that, she pivoted and walked away, her heels stabbing into the pavement like a metronome counting down to trouble. As I watched her disappear into the twilight, an uneasy silence settled over me. Lena reached for my hand. She won't ruin this. We planned too long, and people need this more than ever. I nodded, though the knot in my chest tightened. For Cynthia Greaves, this wasn't about rules. It was about power. And something told me she wasn't finished. Not even close. By midday Saturday, the reunion was in full swing. Paper lanterns floated above the yard, suspended from trees like glowing fruit. Children sprinted between legs and lawn chairs, faces sticky with popsicle juice. The grill sizzled under Uncle, Darnell's watchful eye, smoke rising in fragrant plumes as he flipped ribs with a kind of reverence. From the patio, a low hum of laughter, jazz, and overlapping conversations created the kind of harmony you couldn't fake. It was everything we'd hoped for, until the tow trucks arrived. I was slicing brisket when I heard the diesel rumble. 2 flatbeds rolled into the cul-de-sac like mechanical vultures, slow and deliberate. Behind them, in her signature ivory blouse and linen slacks, came Cynthia Greaves in her HOA golf cart, looking positively smug. She stepped out like a general, surveying the battlefield, clipboard at the ready. My heart sank. You've got to be kidding me. Lena appeared at my side, wiping her hands on her apron. Is she seriously doing this? Cynthia strutted to the curb, pointing toward the line of parked cars, family vans, sedans, an old pickup belonging to my cousin Will. These vehicles are in violation of HOA Regulation 314, she declared. No guest parking in communal zones without prior authorization. And certainly not this many. I stepped forward, trying to keep my voice steady. Those cars aren't blocking any driveways. They're parked legally along the curb. Every spot is public street parking. She didn't flinch. You may want to consult the HOA parking addendum, Mr. Donovan. Public street or not, excessive vehicle presence disrupts visual harmony and impedes emergency access. I have photographic evidence logged and time-stamped. The first tow truck reversed into position. Across the yard, the music stopped. Conversations died. Dozens of family members turned to look. Children clung to their parents. My cousin Maya rushed toward the curb, panic flaring in her voice. "My baby's car seat is in that van," she shouted. "You can't take it." The driver hesitated, already crouching by the wheel to hook the chain. Then came the voice that cracked through the tension like a whip. "Don't touch that van." It was Uncle Dave. Broad-shouldered, sunburned, and built like a freight train, he stepped into the street, eyes fixed on the driver. "Step away from that vehicle," he repeated, slower this time. The driver looked at Cynthia, uncertain. She waved her clipboard like a royal decree. "Proceed, or I'll report you to dispatch." "Try it," I said, pulling out my phone. "Because I've got someone you can talk to right now." With a few taps, I put the call on speaker. The line rang once, then connected. "Donovan, that you?" came the voice, gravelly but warm. "Yeah." "You still on your way, Chief?" "You bet. Just pulling into the neighborhood." I looked up just in time to see the black and white patrol car swing around the corner. The moment the lights hit the trucks, Cynthia's expression changed. She stepped back, as if the very presence of authority unsettled her. The cruiser parked smoothly at the curb, and out stepped Police Chief Gerald Batista, tall, steady, dressed in full uniform. His mirrored sunglasses reflected the scene like a courtroom painting. "Someone want to tell me why there are tow trucks at my godson's family reunion?" he asked, voice calm but unmistakably commanding. Cynthia opened her mouth, already flipping to a tab in her binder. "Officer, this is a private HOA enforcement action. These vehicles are unauthorized and I—" "Hold up." Batista raised a hand. "Last I checked, these streets were public access. That true, Donovan?" "Absolutely." "And is this gathering causing a disturbance? Any complaints filed?" "No, sir," I said. Not even a whisper until she showed up. Batista turned back to Cynthia. "Then you've got no grounds for towing. Unless there's a criminal issue, which there's not. You're operating way outside your authority." Cynthia's face reddened. You don't understand the structure of the HOA. I understand it just fine. What I don't understand is why you're threatening families, calling trucks to impound vehicles with children's car seats inside, and trying to shut down a peaceful event. That's not policy. That's personal. The silence was brutal. Chief Batista turned to the tow truck drivers. Unhook everything. Pack up. You're done here. Neither driver argued. As they pulled away, cheers broke out. Music resumed. Someone passed the chief a plate of ribs. Cynthia, humiliated, climbed into her cart without a word and disappeared down the street. But something in her retreating figure told me this wasn't over. She wasn't the kind to lick her wounds quietly. She was regrouping. Sunday morning dawned hazy and golden, the kind of soft light that made everything feel suspended in time. But peace was fragile in Woodlake Pines. By 8 a.m., it shattered like a wine glass dropped on concrete. Lena nudged me awake, her phone screen glowing in the early light. Look at this. The neighborhood group chat was on fire. Photos of our backyard, taken at night, from odd angles, had been posted with captions like unauthorized gathering, noise after hours, alcohol present. Then came the comments. That many guests? Where's the fire marshal? Who approved this event? Why wasn't the board notified? Clearly a breach of HOA values. I sat up, heart pounding. She's using the neighbors to rally against us. Lena's jaw tightened. She's baiting them with fear, and she waited until most of them didn't see how peaceful it really was. Then, as if summoned by the very tension she created, Cynthia struck again, this time not in person, but on paper. Taped to our front door was a formal violation notice from the HOA, printed in aggressive bold type. It listed infractions: unauthorized event, illegal parking, excessive noise, public intoxication, and disruption of community harmony. Each violation carried a fine, stacked neatly like receipts at a rigged casino. Total, $2,100, Lena read it aloud, her voice a mix of disbelief and fury. She's weaponized the rule book. I tore the paper from the door. She's trying to bleed us dry for daring to enjoy our own property. We spent the next hour calling neighbors, trying to do damage control. Some were sympathetic, like the Hartmans, who had attended the reunion and were furious on our behalf. Others were polite but wary, clearly afraid of crossing Cynthia. A few didn't answer at all. That afternoon, the real blow came. Our access cards for the community pool and clubhouse stopped working. "We've been locked out," Lena said, holding up the blinking red key fob. "She's revoked our amenities." I'd reached my limit. That wasn't just spite. It was targeted harassment. I called Chief Batista. "She's pushing too far," I told him. "We're being fined for nonsense, slandered in public chats, and now she's cutting us off from the neighborhood amenities we pay for." There was a long pause on the other end. Then he said, "She's trying to trigger you into doing something rash. That's what people like her want. But let me ask you something. How's your paper trail?" "Solid," I said. "Everything's documented, time-stamped. I've got witness statements, even video." "Good," he replied. "Then it's time to turn the tables." With his guidance, Lena and I began filing formal complaints. Not just to the HOA board, which Cynthia all but controlled, but to the City Council's Neighborhood Oversight Committee. We compiled reports, gathered footage, printed screenshots, and wrote sworn affidavits. I filed a complaint with the Fair Housing Authority, citing targeted discrimination and abuse of power. But the final piece? That came from inside the HOA itself. Turns out, Cynthia wasn't as beloved by her fellow board members as she liked to believe. A quiet knock came at our door that evening. It was Greg Martinez, treasurer of the HOA board, clipboard in hand, baseball cap pulled low. "I probably shouldn't be here," he whispered, glancing around. "But this has gone too far." He showed us copies of internal emails Cynthia had sent, private communications where she instructed the security team to flag our vehicles, proposed new event caps specifically to block large family gatherings, and even attempted to restrict outside guests of non-traditional background, a phrase dripping with veiled bias. She's trying to turn the HOA into her own private regime, Greg said. Some of us are fed up. Then let's stop her, I said. Greg nodded once. There's a clause in the HOA bylaws. Any board member can be removed with a 2-3 vote if they're found to be acting outside their duties. But we need the majority, and fast. We spent the next 2 days working the phones, sharing evidence, and organizing a special board meeting. Chief Batista helped connect us with a lawyer who volunteered to represent our case at no cost. We weren't just fighting for our family anymore. We were standing up for every neighbor Cynthia had bullied, silenced, or fined into submission. The board vote was scheduled for Thursday evening, and Cynthia had no idea the ambush was coming. Thursday evening arrived wrapped in nervous electricity. The HOA board meeting, normally held in a drab room at the clubhouse, had been moved to the larger community hall due to unprecedented public interest. That was code for everyone knew something was about to go down. Neighbors filed in, whispering behind folded agendas. Cynthia sat near the front in her usual power stance, legs crossed, binder stacked high, eyes sharp behind designer glasses. She still wore that smug smile, as if she'd already won, as if this entire ordeal was just a hiccup on her path to HOA supremacy. Lena and I entered together, flanked by Uncle Dave, Chief Batista, and Greg Martinez. Greg carried a manila folder thick with evidence, documents, photos, statements, every piece of Cynthia's abuse of power. The meeting began like any other. Roll call, approval of minutes. Cynthia glided through the motions, but you could see the tension in her fingers, tight around her pen. She sensed something. Greg stood up during new business. I'm submitting a motion to remove President Cynthia Greaves from the board under Article 4, Section 12 of our bylaws, he said clearly, due to misconduct, discriminatory behavior, and abuse of authority. Gasps echoed across the hall. Cynthia's head whipped around. What nonsense is this? Greg, this is out of order. No, ma'am, he said, voice steady. It's in order. You know the rules. We have quorum. The motion stands. One by one, the other board members opened identical manila folders that Greg had handed out earlier. As they read, their expressions darkened. Lena and I watched in silence, hands clasped tightly under the table. Greg continued. We have documented cases of biased enforcement, unapproved actions, including the illegal attempt to tow vehicles from public property, and efforts to exclude residents based on personal prejudice. We also have correspondence proving she tried to manipulate board decisions for personal revenge. He turned to the audience. This affects all of us. Families fined without cause. Access to shared amenities restricted. Residents silenced or threatened. Cynthia stood, trembling with rage. This is a witch hunt, she spat. A smear campaign by one family who doesn't understand what it means to live in a community with standards. Batista rose from his seat in the back, slowly, like a bear waking from slumber. You call it standards. I call it targeted harassment. The HOA entire room turned toward him. You tried to find families for celebrating. You threatened women, scared children, and tried to rewrite the rules just to punish people you didn't like. That's not leadership. It's tyranny. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Cynthia's composure cracked. This is my HOA. I built this board. No, Greg said firmly. This community built it, and it can choose to rebuild it without you. The vote was called. One by one, hands raised. Board members first, then residents participating under the bylaw's recall clause. It wasn't even close. Cynthia sat frozen as the final tally was read. Effective immediately, Greg announced. Cynthia Greaves is removed from her position. Her access to board privileges is revoked pending a full review. A special election will be held next month. Applause broke out. Genuine, unforced, cathartic. Lena exhaled the breath she'd been holding for days. I felt my shoulders finally drop, as if a weight I hadn't fully recognized had been lifted. Cynthia stormed out, binder clutched to her chest like a fallen crown. Later, that night, our reunion resumed in the form of an impromptu neighborhood cookout, right there on the community lawn. Families who had once stayed silent now joined us. Kids played with sidewalk chalk. Music returned, soft and joyful. Batista toasted with sweet tea. To community, he said, and to standing up when it counts. Uncle Dave slapped me on the back. Told you. She underestimated the wrong family. As I looked around, I realized the real victory wasn't just in defeating Cynthia. It was in what we reclaimed: unity, voice, and a neighborhood that finally felt like home again. The HOA still existed, but now it answered to the people, not just one petty tyrant with a clipboard. And next year's reunion? Let's just say the whole block's invited.